Chief Silas Admo adjusted the cuff of his wristwatch, the faint clink of metal echoing in the high-ceilinged hallway of his lakey mansion. Outside, the early morning sun filtered through floor-to-ceiling glass panels, bathing the marble floor in gold. The air smelled of cedarwood polish and imported candles. Everything gleamed. Everything was quiet. Until, "Sir, please." The voice stopped him mid-step. He turned. Dupe, the maid, stood in the middle of the hallway, her hands clasped, eyes red-rimmed, knees pressed against the cold tiles. Her plain gown clung to her like worry. "Please, sir, don't leave this house. Today," she said, voice trembling but steady. Silas blinked, taken aback, not just by the words, but by the urgency in them. "What is this?" "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I had a dream last night. A clear one. You were wearing that suit. You left the house with your car keys and—" She paused, swallowed. "You never came back." Silas tilted his head. "Dupe, do you understand the importance of where I'm going? That dream, whatever it was, can wait. I'm late already. Sir, please. I saw blood. I heard people calling your name. You were gone." He looked at her carefully now. Her hands shook. Her eyes weren't performing. They were pleading. Before he could respond, the rhythmic click of heels echoed down the stairs. Mariah. His wife stepped into view, already dressed in a silk robe, face immaculate from her 6 a.m. beauty routine. She looked at Dupe like she was dirt on glass. "What in God's name is going on here?" she asked, arms crossed, voice ice. "She's asking me not to leave," Silas said, not breaking eye contact with the maid. Mariah narrowed her eyes. "Because of a dream?" She scoffed. "This is why I said we should have fired her already. She's gone full prophetess." Dupe's head lowered further. "I know I'm just a maid, Ma, but if something happens and I stayed quiet, I wouldn't forgive myself." Silas exhaled sharply, pinching the bridge of his nose. His phone buzzed. "Again, Toby, he let it vibrate out. I don't have time for—" "Wait," he murmured. Mariah's head snapped. "Wait for what?" But Silas wasn't talking to her. Something cold had crept under his skin. A familiar tug. A quiet, gut-deep warning, like static before a lightning strike. He stepped back, slowly, eyes still locked on Dupe. Then, in one motion, he placed the car key on the center table. "I'm not going," he said. Dupe gasped softly. Mariah stared like he'd lost his mind. "You're not what?" "I'm not going." "Silas, be serious," she snapped. "You have an investors' meeting. Billions are at stake." "I know what I said." He walked into the living room and sat down, staring at the marble tiles like they owed him an answer. Silence settled over the house like a held breath. Mariah stormed off, mumbling under her breath. Dupe remained kneeling until the sound of the door upstairs shut hard. Silas didn't move for a long time. He barely noticed Dupe rising, wiping her face, retrieving a forgotten cup from the table. The house was quiet again, but not peaceful. His chest was heavy. He couldn't explain why he believed her, but he did. Something had changed. That night, while Silas sat in his study nursing a glass of untouched whiskey, the phone rang. It was the office line. "Sir," the secretary's voice trembled. "Sean, your driver. He's been in an accident." Silas's heart paused. "What?" "Third Mainland Bridge. A truck. It hit the Lexus. It flipped. Multiple times." Silas rose, the glass tipping slightly in his hand. "And Sean?" "In critical condition. We thought you were in the car." He lowered the phone without replying, his knees bent into the edge of the leather couch. The exact car. The exact time. The dream. The girl on her knees. He couldn't move. Couldn't speak. The only sound was the throb of blood in his ears. Later that evening, Mariah entered the study. "So," she said flatly, You've just been sitting here all day?" Silas didn't respond. "There was an accident," he finally said. Mariah arched a brow. "Okay." Sean took the car. "And a truck hit him. He's in the hospital." She blinked once. "You think this means something?" "I think if I had gone out this morning, I wouldn't be here," she snorted. "Silas, accidents happen every day. Don't turn this into some spiritual fairy tale." He turned to her, his face unreadable. "You're not even worried." "Why, would I be? You're here, aren't you?" That did it. The cold in her voice. The complete absence of care. He looked at her like he'd never seen her before. "I'm keeping her." Mariah froze. "Keeping who?" "Dupe, the maid. She needs to go. She caused unnecessary drama. She saved my life. She overstepped. She saw death coming and spoke up. That's more than you've ever done." Mariah's eyes flared. "You're choosing her over me?" "I'm choosing my peace." She stormed out without another word. Silas leaned back in the chair, fingers pressed together. He wasn't thinking about the maid. He was thinking about something deeper, something rotten under the surface of his life. And for the first time, in years, he was wide awake. The next morning, the smell of toast and coffee drifted from the kitchen, but Silas didn't notice. He sat on the edge of his bed, still in his robe, phone in hand, staring at the photo Dupe had left on the hallway table, a framed image of the staff. She was in the corner, barely visible, but there was something centered about her even in the background. His phone buzzed again. Another message from Toby. "You owe me answers, bro. Call me back." Silas didn't. Instead, he opened the photo gallery, tapped the accident image FundMe had sent the night before. Twisted metal, shattered windshield. The Lexus was unrecognizable. He zoomed in on the crumpled door. That was his side. He closed the phone slowly, chest tight. Something had waited for him outside that morning. Something had been avoided, not by logic, not by luck, by warning. Downstairs, Dupe moved like she always did, quiet, fast, efficient. She wiped down the dining table without a sound. Mariah passed behind her like a shadow, clearly irritated. "Don't think because of yesterday that you're safe," she hissed when Dupe turned away. "This house has rules." Dupe said nothing. She kept cleaning. Mariah's voice dropped lower. "Whatever trick you're playing, it won't last." Dupe met her eyes. "I'm not playing, Ma. I only speak when I'm told to." Mariah's brows furrowed, but before she could respond, Silas entered the room. Both women fell silent. He didn't speak either. Just sat at the head of the table, poured himself a cup of coffee, and stared out the window. The silence was loud. Mariah cleared her throat. "I heard about the accident. You're really going to act like that proves anything?" Silas stirred his coffee slowly. "It proves one thing." "And what's that?" He took a sip before answering. "I need to stop ignoring warnings," she scoffed and grabbed her purse. "Right. So we live by dreams now? Next thing, you'll be hiring a prophet for your board meetings." She stormed off without waiting for a reply. Dupe finished wiping and quietly stepped out. Silas sat there alone at the table, his pulse slow but heavy. The same feeling from yesterday lingered. Something deeper was wrong, not just with the accident, with everything. Later that day, Silas stood by the guest room window, watching the gardener trim the hedges. His mind was anywhere but the lawn. He kept replaying Toby's voice from earlier on the phone. "You didn't show. The investors were furious. We had it in the bag, man. What's going on?" Silas had no answer, not one he could explain in words. But when Toby asked again, his tone more curious than angry, "Talk to me, Silas. You're not the type to ghost deals." That's when the shift happened. Silas didn't trust his voice, so he hung up. He needed quiet. At night, he walked through the house in the dark. No lights, just the silver-blue glow from street lamps outside. The walls looked different without brightness. more honest. As he passed the kitchen, he paused. Dupe was there, placing the last of the cutlery into drawers. Her back was to him. "You sleep at all?" he asked softly. She jumped a little, turned, then straightened her posture. "I try, sir." "You always move like you're hiding." She offered a small, careful smile. "I'm not hiding. I'm watching." He studied her. "Watching what?" "Patterns. People." "You always been like that?" She hesitated, then nodded. Silas leaned against the doorway. "That dream yesterday, was it really that clear?" She stepped closer, but didn't cross the room. "I saw you in that car. I saw the crash. I heard your name being shouted by strangers. I saw blood on your hands. You didn't move." He looked down. "You didn't have to say anything, you know. Most people wouldn't have. I couldn't. Ignore it. That kind of warning, it doesn't come unless something is close." Silas rubbed his chin. "Close like death?" Dupe didn't answer. She didn't have to. The next day, while reviewing some pending files in his home office, Silas came across a contract draft marked urgent. It was from Toby. Dubai property deal. Multi-million-dollar valuation. He opened it, scanned it. Something felt off. He checked the beneficiary account line. The digits didn't match any of their usual receivers. He flipped back to the land valuation. Too low. The payout percentage, unusually high. For Toby, the back of his neck itched. Then Dupe's words from yesterday returned, not whispered, but loud in his mind. "Please don't sign any documents this week. If you do, you'll lose everything. Your company, your freedom." He closed the folder slowly. He wouldn't sign. Not yet. The days that followed felt slower, heavier. Mariah barely spoke. When she did, it was to complain. "Why are you always quiet now?" she snapped one night. Silas looked up from his tablet. "Listening." "To what?" "Everything." She rolled her eyes and left the room, slamming the door behind her, but Silas was listening. To Dupe's footsteps, to Mariah's lies, to Toby's growing desperation on the phone, to his own gut. Finally allowed to speak. On Friday evening, Toby called again. Persistent. "Look," he said when Silas answered, "I know you're mad I pushed the meeting without you, but we can still wrap this up clean. You just need to sign off and I'll review it again," Silas replied evenly. Toby paused. "Review what?" "We agreed on the terms." Silas didn't blink. "You agreed. I'm only now looking closely." A beat. "Is everything okay?" Toby asked, the confidence cracking slightly. Silas paused. Then, "We'll talk soon." He ended the call. In his chest, the storm was no longer rumbling. It was beginning to take shape, and for the first time in a long time, Chief Silas Admo was not just awake, he was preparing. The rain came suddenly that afternoon. One moment, the Lagos sun baked the pavement. The next, thunder cracked and poured its fury onto the marble driveway of Silas's home. Dupe didn't flinch. She kept mopping the corridor, her hands steady even as the windows rattled. Silas watched from upstairs, unnoticed. He was beginning to understand something. Dupe wasn't just calm. She was composed like someone trained to be invisible. He'd seen staff come and go, some noisy, some lazy, some too nosy for their own good. But Dupe moved like a shadow that served. Still, that shadow had changed everything. Later that evening, Silas stood by the kitchen doorway, arms folded. "You don't talk much, do you?" Dupe looked up from the sink. "Only when I need to, sir." "Why is that?" "Words are heavy. If you carry too many, you fall." Silas raised a brow. "Where did you learn that?" She dried her hands, folded the cloth perfectly. "Life." He watched her for a moment. "You always speak like you've seen, more than you should." "I don't see everything," she said. Just enough. The next morning, she was sweeping near the study when she paused outside the half-open door. "Sir?" she said, just loud enough. Silas looked up from his tablet. "Yes?" She stepped inside but kept her distance. "I know this might sound strange, but please don't sign anything this week." He blinked. "Excuse me?" "Documents, contracts, anything in a folder. Don't sign." He stood up slowly, walked around his desk. "Is this another dream?" Dupe nodded. "Clearer than before. I saw papers. You signed them. Then everything collapsed. Your company, your name, your freedom." Silas's breath caught in his throat. "You were handcuffed," she added, voice almost a whisper. "For something you didn't do." He stared at her, then at the thick blue folder on his desk. It was unopened. She turned and left without another word. Silas didn't open the folder for 2 days. Instead, he read people. Mariah was on edge. She had been since the accident. She avoided Dupe like she was radioactive. Every time their paths crossed, her mouth tightened. One night, Silas walked into the living room and found Mariah staring blankly at the TV. "You okay?" he asked. She didn't look at him. "Do I look okay?" "You've been distant." She turned. "You're the one hiding in your office all day, whispering with that girl." Silas sat down across from her. "Dupe isn't the problem." "Oh, please," Mariah hissed. "She walks around like she owns this place. I want her gone. She's staying. I'm your wife, and she saved my life. That counts for something." Mariah stormed off. Silas didn't follow. The next morning, the document folder was back on his desk. This time with a sticky note, "Urgent, investor signature needed." Toby, he opened it. His heart slowed. Something was off. The proposed payout was rerouted to a new foreign account. The valuation section had a small asterisk that hadn't been there before. The land size didn't match the last briefing. Silas leaned back in his chair. His hand hovered over his phone, but he didn't call Toby. Instead, he called someone else. 2 hours later, he met with Felix, a financial consultant from their university days. Honest, sharp, discreet. "Tell me what you see," Silas said, handing over the file. Felix flipped through it with expert eyes. He didn't speak until page 6. "This account," he said, tapping the payout details. "It's not on your registered list," I figured. "And this land valuation? It's been lowered to trigger a loophole in tax transfer laws. Someone's hiding cash." Felix looked up. "Do you want me to keep digging?" Silas nodded. Quietly. That night, Silas couldn't sleep. He kept hearing Dupe's voice. "If you sign, you'll lose your freedom." He stared at the ceiling fan spinning above him and realized something chilling. The documents weren't just shady, they were a trap. 2 days later, Toby showed up uninvited. "Bro," he announced, all charm and perfume as he hugged Silas. "You've been dodging me like I'm a tax audit." Silas forced a smile. Busy days. They sat in the living room. Dupe passed behind them with a tray, silent as a whisper. Toby lowered his voice. "That girl, she's still here?" Silas nodded. Toby chuckled. "Omo. I still can't believe you took her dream seriously. Lagos will humble you, oh." Silas sipped his drink. "I don't ignore warnings anymore." Toby blinked. "Since when?" "Since the last one came true." There was a beat of silence between them. Toby tapped the folder on the table. "So, you signing or what?" "I'm reviewing it." "You're dragging this, bro. The Dubai side is getting nervous." "I'll handle it," Silas said, standing. Toby stood too, trying to smile. Same old Silas, calculating. But Silas wasn't smiling. He was watching. That night, Silas returned to his study and locked the door. He placed the folder in the drawer and pulled out a fresh notepad. He began listing names, people, departments, dates. He was building a map. He didn't know how deep the rabbit hole went, but he was finally ready to follow it. Silas sat in the corner of his home office, lights dimmed, staring at the monitor. The room was silent except for the quiet hum of the ceiling fan and the occasional ping from his encrypted chat window. Lines of numbers scrolled across his screen, account transfers, invoice trails, shell companies. The forensic accountant had sent the report that morning. Now he was staring at the bleeding wound in his business. Offshore accounts in the Caymans, fake land purchase agreements, funds rerouted through layered LLCs. 2 years of theft, all signed, quietly, cleanly, by Toby, his best friend, his business partner. Silas didn't blink. He leaned back in his chair, the leather groaning beneath his weight. The office smelled like espresso and betrayal. It wasn't just about money. It was the way Toby had smiled at every meeting, toasted to every success, praised every plan, all while siphoning him dry. Silas clicked the final tab. There it was. Recurring monthly transfer N15 million to a shell company named Mato Consults Limited. He stared at the name. Mariah. Toby. He closed the laptop. He didn't curse, didn't throw anything. He just sat there, letting the betrayal settle into his chest like wet cement. By evening, he was back in the living room. The air felt heavier now. He could see the fault lines in everything. Mariah glided down the stairs like nothing was wrong. "I've been thinking," she said, standing near the archway, wine glass in hand. "It's time she goes." Silas didn't need to ask who. "Why?" "She's too comfortable, too quiet. I don't trust her. She's efficient. She's disrespectful. She's disciplined." Mariah narrowed her eyes. "You're defending her again?" "I'm acknowledging what's true." She stepped closer. "She watches me. She watches everything." "That's her job." Mariah's voice rose. "No, her job is to clean, not to act like a spy." Silas set down his tablet. "Why are you so threatened by someone who barely speaks?" Mariah's mouth opened, then closed. She turned on her heel and walked away. At midnight, Silas stood in the kitchen alone. The house was asleep, at least the part of it that still pretended to love him. He poured himself a glass of water. Dupe appeared quietly behind him, holding a folded cloth. "You're up late," he said, not turning. "So are you," she replied. He faced her now. "I found something," he said. She didn't ask what, just waited. It was right there, in the reports, in the transactions. "My best friend's been stealing from me for 2 years." She didn't flinch. "And he didn't do it alone," Silas added. Silence stretched between them. Dupe stepped forward. "You already knew," I suspected, "but now it's confirmed." "You're calm." "I'm calculating." She nodded, once. "Be careful. When truth starts to rise, liars panic." He almost smiled. "You always speak in riddles?" "No, sir. Only when the truth is too heavy to say plain." The next morning, Mariah made her move. She cornered Dupe in the pantry. The sun had barely risen. "I want you gone by the weekend," she said sharply. Dupe was folding tablecloths. She paused. "I'll wait for sir to confirm." "I don't need his confirmation." Dupe turned her head slowly. "This is his house, too." Mariah's face darkened. "I should have known someone like you would come with secrets." Dupe didn't reply. Mariah stepped closer. "You think you're winning? You think he'll pick you over me?" "I think he'll pick truth." Mariah slapped the shelf beside her. "You're nothing, just a maid with delusions of importance." Dupe didn't even flinch. "Then, why? Are you afraid of me?" Mariah's breath caught in her throat. That afternoon, Silas called Toby. "Come by the house tomorrow. We need to talk." Toby sounded casual. "About what?" "Business, structure, direction." "Cool, cool," Toby replied. "I'll bring the new docs. We'll lock it in." Yeah, Silas said softly. Let's lock it in. At dusk, Silas walked through his compound. The gardener greeted him. The gates were closed. The staff quarters were quiet, but the truth was noisy inside him. He was ready now. He had the data, the documents, the motive. He had the rage, but most importantly, he had the silence and the patience to destroy them both properly, the sky over. Victoria Island was a moody gray, the kind that hung low like a secret waiting to break. Silas sat in the back seat of his SUV, windows tinted, the engine humming faintly beneath him. His driver glanced at the rearview mirror. "Sir, we're here." Silas didn't answer. He looked out at the boutique hotel across the street. 4 stories, white stucco, a discreet entrance. Nothing flashy, perfect for hiding in plain sight. At 9:47 a.m., the first photo came in. Toby, black polo, sunglasses, cap pulled low. He walked in confidently, as if this wasn't his first time. Probably wasn't. 5 minutes later, another update. Room 406. Silas inhaled through his nose, held it, then exhaled slowly. He stepped out without a word and crossed the street. His stride was steady, but his blood was a war drum. Inside the lobby, the receptionist smiled. "Good morning, sir." Silas didn't smile back. "Room 406. Her lips parted to protest, but Silas reached into his wallet and pulled out 2 thick bundles of Naira notes. No words needed. A keycard slid into his palm seconds later. The corridor to the 4th floor was narrow and quiet. Every step he took felt surreal, like walking through the ghost of his own life. He reached the door. No knock, no warning. He slid the card. A soft click. He opened it. Mariah was in a white bathrobe, glass of wine in hand, standing near the minibar. Toby sat shirtless on the couch, phone in hand, legs spread with the entitlement of someone who thought he'd won. They both looked up at the same time. Everything froze. Mariah's hand trembled. The glass tilted slightly. Toby jumped to his feet. "Guy!" Silas raised a hand. "Don't." Toby froze. Mariah's lips parted. "Silas, I can explain." "Don't lie," Silas said, calm, steady. She stepped forward. "You followed me? I stopped trusting you 2 months ago. Now I know why." Toby tried to chuckle. "It's not what you think. It's exactly what I think. And worse." Silence. Then Silas looked at Mariah. "You married me for this?" Her face twitched. "You never saw me. You were always married to your company, and you were always married to my account," he replied. "You and your business partner." Toby flinched like he'd been slapped. Silas took one last look at them. The whole scene burned into his memory. I hope it was worth it. He turned, opened the door, and left. No shouting, no theatrics, just the cold silence of a man who had finally seen what he refused to believe. That night, he returned home and sat in his study for hours. No lights, no music. Just the air conditioning and the ticking clock. At 10:04 p.m., he made 2 calls. One to his lawyer, the other to his company's lead accountant. "Prepare divorce papers," he said, "and begin the process to buy out Toby's shares." Effective when? Immediately. He didn't sleep that night, didn't eat. By morning, the mansion was just a shell full of expensive silence. Every painting, every polished floor, every scented candle mocked him. He wandered from room to room like a ghost, a man whose home had been hollowed out long before he noticed. 3 days later, Dupe found him in the kitchen, barefoot, sipping cold coffee straight from the pot. "You look tired, sir," she said gently. Silas didn't respond. She placed a hot cup on the counter beside him. "Drink this instead." He looked at her. No pity in her eyes. Just presence. "You knew," he said. "I saw what you didn't want to see," she replied. He nodded. "I saw it now." She hesitated. "It will get harder before it gets lighter." He nodded again. She turned to leave, then paused. "But you survived the worst part, the lie," and then she was gone. The divorce papers came back signed within the week. Mariah didn't bother showing up. She sent her lawyer. "Tell him I agree to everything," she had said. "Just give me my peace." Peace. After planning to kill him. After sleeping with his best friend. After wrapping herself around his life like silk over a blade, she wanted peace. Silas signed with a steady hand. He didn't cry. He couldn't. His pain didn't come with noise. It came with stillness, the kind that chokes, the kind that hollows. Toby never called. Cowardice, Silas realized, often hides behind silence. But his team had already begun the extraction process. Toby's access was revoked. His office cleared. His name scrubbed from every signature line. Silas sat in the boardroom alone one afternoon, staring at the logo on the projector screen. Crestrock Real Estate Group, founded by brothers, now rebuilt by one. That night, he found himself standing in the hallway outside the guest wing. Dupe's light was still on. He didn't knock. He just stood there for a long moment, then walked away. Something inside him was unraveling, but another part was being sewn back together. And it all started with a girl in a plain gown. Who told the truth when no one else would? The silence was alive. Not the comforting kind that calms a room, but the thick, suffocating type that presses against your chest like humidity before a storm. It crept into the mansion the morning after Mariah's departure and refused to leave. Silas sat at the dining table alone. The clatter of cutlery had vanished. The light, once warm, now felt clinical. Mariah had left without a final word. Just a note on the granite counter. "You win. I'm tired." Next to it sat her wedding ring. Cold, hollow, still gleaming. The lawyer had called at 8:02 a.m. "It's done," she said. Her team agreed to the terms. "The settlement is clean. You retain the house, the business, and all assets." Silas didn't react. He only asked, "Did she ask for anything?" "A transfer to her personal account. Nothing else." Of course not. No apologies, no explanations. Just cash. In the following days, the staff moved like ghosts. The chef left early. The gardener trimmed hedges that didn't need trimming. Even the driver asked for fewer assignments. Only Dupe remained constant, quiet, consistent, watching. She never overstepped, never asked questions. But Silas knew she saw everything, every unspoken ache, every silent collapse. One night, as thunder rolled in the distance, Silas found himself staring out the living room window, barefoot on the cold tiles. "The rain started again. I was blind," he said aloud. Dupe's voice answered behind him. "You were loyal." He turned. She stood with a folded blanket in her hands. "I let them build a world on top of me," he said. "My wife, my best friend. They stacked lies so high, I forgot what sunlight looked like. You wanted to believe. I needed to." They stood in silence for a long while. Then she asked, "Why haven't you asked me who I really am?" He looked at her. "I think I already know." At the company, Toby's name vanished from the boardroom door. Silas made no announcement. He simply called a meeting with the senior executives. "As of today," he said, "I'm restructuring Crestrock. New policies, new leadership code, new transparency models." Someone asked, "Will Mr. Onishila return?" Silas's voice was firm. "No." No one argued. The documents had spoken louder than any explanation ever could. The mansion changed subtly. The extravagant flower arrangements disappeared. Mariah's designer bags were packed and shipped to a neutral storage location. The framed anniversary photo on the hallway wall vanished one morning. Dupe's quiet doing. Silas didn't ask where it went. He didn't want to know. One afternoon, he walked into the living room and paused. The chandelier still sparkled above, but everything beneath it felt empty. He stared at the couch where Mariah once lounged, legs crossed, phone in hand. He saw ghosts, memories, echoes, and then quiet footsteps. Dupe entered carrying a tray with tea and fruit. She didn't speak. She simply placed it in front of him, turned, and walked out. No fuss, no pretense, just presence. That night, Silas picked up his phone. He didn't dial. He scrolled through old messages, ones from Toby, filled with fake brotherhood, ones from Mariah, filled with curated love. He deleted them all. 3 days later, his lawyer called again. Paperwork's finalized. Everything's officially under your name now. Silas nodded. Thank you. No need to thank me. You did. The hard part. You survived. After the call ended, Silas remained still for a long time. Survived. The word settled in his chest like a weight that no longer hurt. He walked to the study, opened the cabinet, and pulled out a single, untouched bottle of wine. One Mariah had once called a waste for just the two of us. He poured one glass, only for himself, and raised it silently, not for celebration, but for closure. It was a quiet morning, the kind of morning that made the walls feel like they were waiting for something. Silas stepped into the living room, barefoot, a towel slung over his shoulder. The scent of citrus cleaner lingered faintly in the air. It should have felt fresh. Instead, it felt final. Then he saw it, on the center table. A folded note, his name written in small, neat letters. He opened. Thank you for listening. I leave tomorrow morning. Stay awake. D. His heart skipped. He dropped the towel without realizing. She was leaving. He found her in the kitchen, wiping down the counters one last time. You weren't going to tell me? He asked. Dupe looked up. Her eyes were soft but sure. You would have tried to stop me. You're right, he said. A long silence hung between them. Silas stepped closer. You can't go. She folded the cloth. I have to. Why? My assignment here is over. He stared at her. You're not just a maid, are you? She tilted her head slightly. Does it matter? Yes, he said. Because you're the only one who never asked for anything, not even thanks. Dupe's voice was calm. Because I wasn't sent to take. I was sent to protect. By who? She didn't answer. Please, he said, the words raw. Stay. I don't even know what I'm doing without you. Dupe placed the cloth on the counter with precision. Yes, you do. You just forgot. Then remind me, he whispered. She walked around the island slowly, stopping just in front of him. If you had signed that contract, she said, you would have lost everything. Your company, your name, your freedom. Silas nodded. I know, she continued. You would have gone to jail while the people who planned your end built a future from your ashes. He clenched his jaw. But you didn't sign, she said. You listened. That means you're ready. Ready for what? To start again, she replied. This time, with your eyes open. The clock ticked in the distance. I don't want you to go, he said, voice low. I know. I need you here. Dupe shook her head gently. You don't need me. You needed clarity. And now you have it. He swallowed hard. Is this it then? She smiled softly. For me, yes. She walked to the door. He followed. Before opening it, she turned to him. Live right, she said. He nodded. Trust slowly. He bit his lip. Love carefully. His eyes shone. And watch everyone. Then she opened the door. And just like that, she was gone. Silas stood there, the wind brushing past him like a whisper. He didn't chase her. He didn't cry. But something inside him cracked and healed at the same time. He turned, walked back into the living room, and picked up the framed photo of his wedding day from the hallway shelf. For 5 seconds, he stared at the frozen smiles. Then he smashed it against the floor. The glass shattered, just like the lie. He crouched down, picked up one sharp shard, and stared into it. In the jagged reflection, he saw someone new, cut, bruised, awake. And for the first time in years, Silas Admo smiled, not because the pain was over, but because the fog was gone. Silas stood in the center of the Crestrock boardroom. It had been 3 months since Toby's removal, 3 months since Mariah's silence, 3 months since Dupe walked out that door without a sound but left behind a storm of clarity. And now, here he was. Not the same man who used to run the show in slick suits and empty smiles. No, this man wore simplicity like armor. No more side deals, he said, voice clear. The managers around the table looked at him, some nervous, others relieved. No more back channels, no more favors tucked into contracts. A silence fell over the room. Silas leaned forward. We clean this company from the inside out, or I walk away from it. That was the new. Oh. In the days that followed, departments were shuffled. Some executives quit, quietly before they were pushed. Others stayed, eager for a culture where honesty wasn't weakness. Silas hired young blood, fresh minds from local universities, dreamers, builders. He hosted strategy sessions in sneakers. He removed his name from the parking spot. He was rebuilding, not just the company, but the man behind it. At home, the silence remained, but it no longer felt hollow. He stopped sleeping in the master bedroom. Too many memories, too many ghosts. He moved into one of the guest rooms, smaller, simpler, just enough. He started cooking his own breakfast, toast, black coffee, 2 eggs. He went for early walks, no driver, just headphones and sweat. And slowly, the weight began to lift. One morning, he paused during a run along the lagoon. He looked out over the water, the horizon a soft pink as the sun climbed. And he smiled, genuine, light. It wasn't because anything spectacular had happened, it was because nothing was fake. The old Silas wouldn't have recognized this version. This one who returned calls not out of duty but care. This one who laughed at interns' jokes. This one who refused bribes from land agents offering secret cuts. One Thursday, he met with his finance team. The lead accountant, Mr. Danjuma, placed a file on the table. "Last quarter's audit," he said. Silas flipped through it. Balanced, transparent. He looked up. "Good work," Danjuma nodded. "Your changes. They're working, sir." "No," Silas corrected. "Our changes are working." At night, he read again. Books he used to rush through now felt like companions. Philosophy, business ethics, even poetry. He wrote in margins. He kept a notebook. Just thoughts, reflections. One page read, "Power is not in silence. It's in clarity." People started noticing. A journalist reached out, offering an exclusive on the reformed mogul. He declined. "I don't need to prove anything anymore," he told his assistant. "Not to strangers, not to ghosts." Eventually, he started saying yes to invitations again, charity auctions, book launches, even a small seminar on ethical development. It was at one of these events, a fundraiser for a children's literacy program, that he met someone. Her name was Zainab, simple. Dress, wide smile, sharp eyes. She spoke about books like they were people, about children like they were stories waiting to be protected. They talked for 15 minutes, then an hour, then 2. She didn't ask about his wealth. She asked what book had. Last moved him, he told her the truth, and she didn't flinch. They met again the next week. Then again. He didn't rush it. No hand-holding in public, no grand declarations, just walks, coffee, conversation. It felt light. One evening they sat under a jacaranda tree in a quiet park. Zainab looked at him. "You always look like you're halfway between peace and pain." Silas chuckled. "Because I am. Still healing, still waking up." She nodded. "That's okay, as long as you stay awake." At home that night, Silas opened his notebook again. He wrote, "Peace isn't loud. It's the quiet you stop running from." He closed the notebook and looked around the room. Everything was still. Everything was honest. And for the first time, he didn't miss what he lost. He was grateful for what remained. The sky over the city was pale and still. A quiet Sunday. The kind people often wasted scrolling through curated lives. But on one cracked street in Surulere, a small black car pulled up in front of a duplex with peeling paint and tension in the air. Dupe stepped out, same plain gown, same flat shoes, hair in neat cornrows, face calm, eyes focused. She rang the bell once. A tired-looking woman opened the door. Her face was puffy from crying, voice hoarse from holding in too much. "Are you the lawyer?" the woman asked. "No," Dupe said softly. "I'm the housemaid." Inside, the walls carried whispers. The woman, Ronki, led her in with hesitation. "The last one didn't last a week." "I'm not like the last one." Ronki nodded, distracted. Her husband was in the next room, on a silent call, probably with the secretary. The air in that home was heavy with avoidance. Dupe stepped into the kitchen, rolled up her sleeves, and began. Not with cleaning, with listening. Across the city, Silas sat under a canopy at a book cafe, sipping ginger tea. Zainab sat across from him, reading aloud a passage from a children's book. Her voice was soft, her laughter real, not the performative kind that filled cocktail parties. He watched her without needing to impress. She met his gaze without needing to flatter. She was everything Mariah wasn't, and he was no longer the man Mariah married. Zainab lowered the book. "You're staring." "I'm grateful," Silas replied. "For what?" "For the version of me I get to be around you." She smiled. "I like him. He's still learning." "Good, I don't trust people who stop." At Crestrock, Silas walked into the boardroom for the quarterly review. His new team sat in place, young, alert, no one checking their phones. He looked at the digital presentation. Revenue, climbing. Corruption index, non-existent. Morale, high. He turned to them. "This is the company I always meant to build." No applause. Just nods of quiet agreement. That was enough. Meanwhile, Dupe stood in the hallway of the new house, listening to Ronki argue with her husband behind a closed door. "I know there's someone else," Ronka snapped. "You're paranoid," the man replied. "You smell like her perfume." A chair scraped loudly. A door slammed. Dupe continued sweeping. Not a flinch. Not a pause. Just presence. By her second week there, the house was cleaner, not just in dust and clutter, but in silence. Ronki stopped crying. She started breathing deeper. Her children began smiling again. The husband noticed. One evening, he lingered. "Near the dining room. You don't talk much," he said. Dupe looked up. "Only when the house needs more truth than noise." He frowned. "What does that mean?" She returned to wiping the table. "It means the lies here are louder than the truth." The man left without another word, but something in him began to shift. Silas and Zainab began walking together on Saturdays. No destination, just conversation. One day, she stopped near a street vendor, bought him a paperback. "Why this one?" he asked. "Because it's about second chances." He held it for a moment. "I used to think love was made of grand gestures. And now?" He looked at her. Now I know it's made of quiet decisions. In the duplex, Dupe found a photo frame under the sink while cleaning, a wedding picture buried under a pile of old receipts. She placed it gently on the hallway shelf. Later that night, Ronki stood staring at it for a long time. Dupe walked past her without speaking, but the woman whispered, "Thank you." One morning, Silas received a call from a former employee, someone who'd once sided with Toby. "Sir," the voice said, "I've been watching how the company changed. I was wrong." Silas replied, "We all were, but we grow." He hung up and smiled. The past no longer had power over him, only memory, and memory no longer burned. It taught. Dupe packed quietly that Saturday. Ronki came into the room, confused. "You're leaving?" "Yes, but why now?" "Things are finally calmer." Dupe smiled gently. "That's why." Ronki's eyes welled up. Was this your plan?" Dupe didn't answer. She stepped outside, the morning sun catching the hem of her gown. A taxi pulled up. She got in without looking back. Inside, she opened a small notebook. Names, places, quiet entries. She turned the page. Next, Yaba. Back in Lekki, Silas stood at the window of his office. Zainab sat behind him, reviewing something on her tablet. He turned to her. "Do you believe in fate?" She looked up. "I believe in intersections. People appear where they're needed most." He nodded slowly. "I knew someone like that," he said. "A friend?" He thought for a moment. "An angel with a mop." She smiled, puzzled. "You're going to have to explain that someday." "One day," he said, "but not today." That evening, he lit a candle in the study, not out of ritual, just because the light was soft and real. He picked up his notebook and wrote, "Wherever she walks, lies fall and truth rises." Then he closed the book, leaned back, and let the quiet in. This time, it didn't hurt. It healed.